Hi guys and gals and kittens, and welcome to the AINIRO Magic Show. So in this video I'm going to show you how you can document your software project. This is going to be technology agnostic. Let's say you have a GitHub project or some sort of like a software project and you need to document it. So obviously I'm going to illustrate this using our own documentation as the basis. So here you see the documentation for Magic Cloud. Which is our platform as a service platform. Magic Cloud, of course, is an insanely complex system. It's an entire software development platform based upon low code, no code, and AI. I'm going to show you how I created this documentation website. Now, first, let's have a look at the website. As you can see, it's obviously a fairly modern, kind of cool website, right? It's got all of these guys on this page, which I can click, Hyper ID. See, I've got screenshots, I've got embedded YouTube videos, I got the fast links here on the left pointing to, you know, some particular specific subject. I got primary links up here at the top, for instance, the tutorials, and if I click the dashboard here, I can see all the dashboard components of Magic Cloud, and I can drill in and I can go to, let's say I go to chatbot wizard here, for instance, then, you know, I will see screenshots of this particular component in Magic. Now, and this, of course, reflects the way the system actually looks like. Here I'm inside of the dashboard of Magic. If I now go to create, I go to chatbot wizard, right? Then I see something that resembles the screenshot, which comes with an additional explanation, allowing me to roughly figure out how to use this particular component. So then comes the question, how did I create this documentation website? Well, first things first, if we go to the top here, you see docs.ainiro.io. There's going to be a link in the description of this YouTube video to where you can check it out if you want to. So docs.ainiro.io is actually a CNAME record on my DNS, ainiro.io, of course, being my domain. And docs.ainiro.io is a CNAME record because the website is actually hosted by GitHub. I mean, I literally pay 0 cents per month to host these websites. So how does that work? Well, actually, GitHub has this feature they refer to as GitHub Pages. Now, if you create a GitHub repository with your username, as you can see here, github.com/polterguy, that's my username, / and then you create a GitHub repository with this exact name. Your username, whatever that is, if your username is foo, it would say foo here, and then it would say foo, and then dot, and then important, crucial, github.io. What GitHub will actually do then, it will create a website for you, a statically served website. You don't have any server processing, at least not as far as I'm aware of, but you do have the ability to serve static web pages. If I copy this URL and I go to this, you will see it actually redirects to docs.ainiro.io because I've configured my particular GitHub repository here with a CNAME file, CNAME, no extension, that says basically one simple thing, docs.ainiro.io. And actually you can see it in my code here. If I go to CNAME here, because here I have the entire repository, as you can see, polterguy.github.io. And here inside of this one, you will see my CNAME record, docs.ainiro.io. And then GitHub Pages has the ability to host Jekyll pages. They do have the ability to host shitloads of other statically served web pages too. I'm not entirely sure about all of their features, but I think you can serve Docosaurus pages and stuff like that. However, I'm using Jekyll, which is like the industry standard, so to speak, for statically served web pages. What happens now is that when I do a change here, if you look at index.md here, you will see it's basically Markdown with front matter, right? Here I have the title, Magic Cloud, description, and then I have a header image, and then I have an image description. If we go here now and we have a look at this guy, you will see Magic Cloud, and you will see the header here, and you will see the image, and you will see the image description if you inspect this particular image and look at its alt tag. And here you can see this content is basically the HTML transformed Markdown. If you look here, Magic Cloud or Magic for short, notice, blah, blah, workflows, blah, blah, and here's a YouTube video embedded. The Magic dashboard below that, etc. So this allows me to use Markdown as the source code for my software systems documentation, providing hyperlinks like this, HyperID. If I go down here, HyperID, whoops, sorry about that. Let me try again. HyperID, etc. Right. So this provides me with a super high semantic data only type of documentation thing, which actually becomes super important. And for the record, to get started with Jekyll, you go to Jekyll, I can't remember the URL, Jekyll Markdown, jekylrb.com. There we go. That's the URL, jekylrb.com, because it's Ruby on Rails, or Ruby, not Ruby on Rails. RB meaning Ruby. jekylrb.com. And they will show you how to get started with Jekyll. So basically, you just create a new GitHub repository with this naming convention, right? Being your username .github.io at the end, and that must be the name of your repository. And then you follow the guide at jekylrb.com inside of that repository. That's going to give you a structure roughly resembling this. And then if you look at my config YAML file, you'll see I'm using a remote theme here. I'm using minimal mistakes, which is the theme you're looking at now, which I think is a super high quality theme. And then every single time you make a push towards this GitHub repository, just automatically your documentation updates. Period. So now let me come to the crucial part of this, because obviously, right, so one of our core products, arguably our flagship product, you might say, at least from the customer's perspective, is an AI chatbot. That's literally what we're delivering. If you go to AINIRO.io, you will see, cool, I get to put ChatGPT on my website. They have a chatbot, blah, 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 etc., etc. So obviously, an AI chatbot such as this can do immensely super amazing things related to documentation. Now let me just illustrate that by clicking the chatbot button here. You can see ask me anything. If I click this button now, you will see I get conversation starters, I get a greeting, all that beautiful stuff. Now I can click any one of these conversation starters. What is an AI workflow, right? And then ChatGPT using GPT-4o is going to describe what an AI workflow is to me. As you can see here, it injects code, does all the beautiful Markdown stuff, shows me example, it even integrates YouTube videos, and then I can further drill down because it follows up with follow-up questions related to my previous questions. So how can I create a custom action in Hyperlambda, blah, 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 etc., etc. Hopefully this is going to give me a screenshot, which is kind of what I am looking for. But this provides me with a super high quality documentation feature, right? Allowing me to extremely well document my system and allowing the user to arguably ask questions towards your Markdown, right? So let me ask it to tell me about HyperID, right? Which is one of the components. If I now have a look here at the dashboard, and then I look at HyperID here, this is probably the Markdown that this particular question is going to use to answer my question. Right here you see HyperID is a web-based integrated blah blah, screenshot, immediate code execution, blah blah, machine learning and AI features, declarative programming, and I can continue asking follow-up questions. Does it have autocomplete, right? It, of course, being the subject of the conversation, this particular point in time, the subject of the conversation is HyperID. And here you can see it even shows an example of HyperID. It shows me how to trigger the autocomplete, hopefully. How do I open the autocomplete window in HyperID? Let's see if it answers me. And here you can see control space and functional control space. Right. So Let me show you how I created this AI chatbot. What I basically did, here I'm inside of the Cloudlet Manage. If I go to machine learning here, and I look at the magic documentation machine learning type here, this is the type that's being used for this AI chatbot. So if I now go into this models configuration, you will see that I have some general information about Magic Cloud here as a system message, explaining all the core features, like some of the most important keywords in HyperLambda, the expressions, how to create HyperLambda, the typing system, etc., conditional operators and stuff like that. But most importantly is that if I click training data here now and I filter on Magic documentation, you will see that there are 436 snippets implying context data records. Now, if I ask it about sleep, sleep is one of the keywords in HyperLambda, right? If I ask it, how does the sleep slot work, right? Then the point being that now actually the system is not only going to document what the sleep slot actually does, but it's also going to actually show me some example HyperLambda code here now. If I now ask, how do I deal with exceptions, right? Obviously, it is implying HyperLambda. HyperLambda, I need to emphasize, is a programming language that GPT-4o does absolutely have no idea about how to generate code with. Still, this particular chatbot creates perfectly valid HyperLambda for me. Why? Because if I now take this exact question here, copy, I filter on Magic documentation, I click VSS here, and I paste in the question, you will see the training snippets that this particular question actually will trigger. Exception handlers here, explaining exception handlers, HyperLambda exceptions, showing the code it actually displayed for me inside of the chatbot, exception handlers, etc., how to use throw, and of course it will fill up with 4,000 context tokens before it submits it to ChatGPT. So all of these training snippets will, or well, actually only the first 5, will be used when ChatGPT is answering my question to provide contextual data for ChatGPT, allowing it to intelligently answer my question. So I don't know how good of a documentation you have for your particular software system, whatever your software system is, but I'm willing to bet the kidney on that this documentation is better. And the reasons, of course, being the intersection between the way I'm applying my documentation with Markdown, the way I'm hosting it at GitHub, and the way I'm using Ruby and Jekyll, and of course the sugar on the top, so to speak, the AI chatbot, which I can even put into maximized mode if I wish. So, and I can even, if I ask it to, create a HyperLambda code snippet that creates a slot that adds 5 numbers given as arguments and return only the HyperLambda without any explanation. And now, of course, the point being, I actually haven't turned on the copy button here now, but actually, if I had the copy button here now, I could just copy this and paste it into HyperLambda Playground, and I could immediately evaluate it, and I'd have a new slot called add 5 numbers. And yet again, I need to emphasize, ChatGPT does not know how to create this code. Does not know. Has absolutely no idea about how to create this code. And you can actually try that out yourself by asking vanilla ChatGPT to do the same, at which point it's just going to flat out hallucinate and come up with some rubbish. And the same is true probably for your software system too, unless you have like 500,000 users and your software system happens to be like the most popular software system on earth. However, what happens here now is that when I'm asking my chatbot this question, it's getting all of these snippets. And these snippets explains to ChatGPT how to perform this particular task. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.